Hello, everyone, and today we're just going to be talking a little bit about Hyper Light Breaker, which is currently in early access. It released, I think, 2 days ago, of January 13th of 2025, and I've been really enjoying this game so far, so I thought I'd just put together a quick video to just compile my thoughts. For reference, I have currently beaten the one full cycle of the game, which means that there are 3 bosses. There are currently 2 bosses, and you have to beat them a total of 3 times, and they do get harder with each iteration as the game progresses in its creation. I imagine there will be more bosses. So right away, I want to preface 2 things. One is that this game is very early access, so everything that I say here is subject to significant and very vast changes and updates may occur. And 2 is that what I may say may sound harsh, but I want to preface that I have really enjoyed my time. Currently 10 hours of Hyper Light Breaker so far. Now, if we just get into the game, just get started here. One of the big things that I want to talk about is the movement and the combat, as well as the overall game feel. It's a hack and slash game style with an open world, which has roguelike elements as well as extraction elements. So the way it works is you have your player character and you go in and you explore a world, a randomly generated world seed. And you can bring along your main weapon. You can also have ranged weapons and what are called amps, which are essentially special equipment. You can also equip yourself with special armor, which increases your health. And then you have these up here, which are called holobites, which are essentially, in the terms of maybe Hades, would be your boons. So you can have a maximum of 5, and all of these have rarities. So gray is the least common, and it goes from gray, blue, purple, and then orange is the last one. So one thing that I would like to say is that the movement and the combat in the game is very smooth. However, currently of this game, there's a lot of loading, and also there's a lot of frame issues. So I have my current setup at the lowest frame rate possible, or sorry, the lowest graphics settings possible, and I still sometimes will get encoder overloading or frame drops, especially during points of like high intensity or graphics. Lots of effects are flying around. Now I'll just go over the basic movement. So here we are. This is the basic game flow. So we start here with this map, and as you can see here, there's various treasures that we can pick up. These little yellow prisms. And then finally the bosses. So these prisms represent elite enemies, which you are required to defeat, or special objectives. They are not always tied to elite enemies. Sometimes you'll find them lying around, but generally these prisms will be tied to stronger variants of existing enemies, which you have to defeat. When you have 2 of them, you may challenge the first boss, 4 of them for the second, and 6 for the third, which is over here. Now you can see here there are various items scattered across the map. These are weapons and equipment that you can pick up and make yourself stronger, and this is where the extraction element comes into play, because as the game progresses, you will see on the top left under my my mini map there is a bar that slowly starts to fill up, and when that becomes full, or as it fills up, the map becomes more aggressive and stronger enemies will spawn. In particular, one event will create a very strong mini boss that will chase you around the area, but I'll get into that later. Where the extraction element comes into play is every time you spawn into this world, there's an extraction point where you can go in and sort of get out with what loot you have. So one thing that I would like to point out that's very important, I think, are these square looking plants. And what they do is, if you're low health, they will heal you. And they also give you what is called a metagem. Now, metagems are really important because they are what form the basis for your main source of healing throughout the game. So before you venture on into your exploration, if you have sufficient metagems, they will transform into medikits, which you can use for base healing. They essentially function like flasks. Now, combat in this game is actually pretty smooth. You have your melee attack, and you have a dash which has invincibility frames, and there's also a dash attack that you can follow up with. However, currently in the early access, there is no tutorial where you can practice these freely, and so you do kind of have to venture out into the great unknown, such as it was. You also have an area attack, but it's only one. You can also charge your melee attacks. All melee weapons have different charges, so feel free to experiment with one. And they also will have a special attack. So on my PlayStation controller, it's mapped to my triangle button, but it also will be Y. And it looks something like this. And that's a very strong blow, and you'll see at the bottom right of my HUD that there is something that's now on cooldown. Other things that you can do with the combat, or just movement in general, is you can double jump, and you have a glider which has its own stamina bar. You also have a hoverboard which you can use to traverse the areas quickly, and you can also do funny little tricks on it too if you are very good at the game, which I am not. So right here we have one of the prism enemies, which you can see they're the bat variant, which are very strong and quite frustrating to deal with. So one thing that you can do in this game is you can also parry. The parry system is very good for a number of reasons, one of which is you use it to restore lost health. And it's important to use it effectively, especially in boss fights, but sometimes for these enemies as well. Maybe not for this one. So right now, quite low health. So in this game, it's very difficult, as you might imagine. Extraction games are quite hard, and then also roguelikes are quite hard. So the combination of two of them obviously makes for quite a difficult game. Now, I could just like leave. You don't have to do every fight, of course. I mean, these ones are somewhat mandatory. But most fights are just as you kind of go along. But one of the good things about beating these prism enemies is that they drop a lot of good loot, which is awesome. And the core will, the prism will also heal you slightly. But this game is very unforgiving, especially in the early game when you are still learning how to play and what to not run into, like I just did there, and various things that are very difficult. So I'm actually going to extract because I'm quite low health, and the extraction will also heal you a little bit as you prepare to leave. But one gripe I do have with the game is obviously the early game is very difficult, and it leans very much into a very specific playstyle, which is to just sort of just spam the dash button, because the dash has invincibility frames. It allows you to just sort of just keep sort of hitting it over and over as long as you have dash pips, which are this bottom stamina bar on the bottom left of my screen. So I was able to successfully extract. So there's a couple other things that I want to mention. The gameplay flow becomes very difficult when you don't know what you're doing, especially in this early development stage, because there's not a lot of information given to you, especially if you're playing this game solo. Now, a couple of tips that I would give to new players is dedicate to some of your runs to just learning your character, as well as collecting metagems. Metagems do not stay during when you enter your next like reset. That will become apparent to you later, and so it's important that you learn how to use them and when you can gather them. The other thing that I would recommend that you learn how to you do is when you start the game, you will be playing this character. His name is Vermilion, and you will have the gunslinger loadout, or SciComm as they call it. I would do my best to unlock the tank SciComm, because the gunslinger SciComm is very damage focused and oriented, and it also, in that regard, it lacks a lot of survivability. So being new to a game, you're more likely to just die and not know what you're doing and feel frustrated because this is your starting character. The tank, on the other hand, has a lot of armor and a lot of health, both of which enhance your survivability. With that in mind, finding and unlocking the tank, the way you unlock these SciComms is you will find cores around the map, which are just one of the many resources that you can find during a cycle, and these are permanent. So some of these are not permanent. For example, a key is not permanent resource. Metagems are not permanent resources. Bright blood and materials are semi-permanent in the sense that these operate as a currency. You use them to unlock chests, to upgrade your weapons, or to buy new equipment. Golden rations are the permanent upgrades to your main hub, and so same thing with the Abyss Stone. Now, one other thing that I probably should mention is that when you like play the game, just be kind to it and be kind to yourself, I guess, because this game will kill you a lot, especially when you're on the road to unlocking the tank. a tank increases your survivability by a lot with its health and armor, but it doesn't make you invincible. So other things that I would recommend are getting armor. So armor is one of the many gears that you can find throughout the Overgrowth, and they just flat increase your health and armor. Now it says that it reduces your dash speed and distance, and while it does do that, the important thing is that the iframes are still there, which they are. The second thing is looking at your equipment's substats. Now, you'll see here that some of these weapons and armor will come with extra stats. So you see here this purple gun has attack and also blast. When you're starting out, try to find weapons that have the HP or stamina subset, which allow you to be a little bit more survivable, and also with the stamina it allows you to travel a bit further. And then for hollow bites, just grab what you can. Obviously, later in the game you'll be able to have a bit more pick and choose, and even later still you'll be able to access your vault, which allows you to kind of like grab pretty much anything that you can get your hands on and just sort of shove it into your vault. But that's it for me. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoy the game and look forward to its development.